Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Talk to SATV, where we dive deep into the most pressing global and national issues. Today, we are honored to have with us one of my old friend, Dr. Jack Edward Efron, who is a renowned researcher and a close observer of international politics. Welcome to the show.
Thank
Jack.
you. Thank you for inviting me.
Jack is a close observer of international politics. He has an illustrious career in research and academia as well. He did his LLB from University of British Columbia, and he did his BA honors in University of Cincinnati, USA, and finally he did his PhD from University of London. He taught in Griffith University, Australia, Victoria University, Wellington, and last but not the least, University of Philippines as well. Jack, welcome to the show. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us.
Thanks.
First of all, we will start our discussion with an intriguing topic that we do have now in international news. That is, US Defense Secretary, he has stressed the European nations that they should take their own responsibility of their defense. US will not guarantee Europe's security anymore. Since 1949, US was an influential partner in NATO. They supported NATO with military weapons, political leadership, and the nuclear umbrella to prevent aggression, especially during the Cold War period. Americans' commitment to Europe's security has helped stabilize the continent. Thanks God, President Putin didn't attack, any European country rather than Ukraine, because had he attacked any European country, he would have been, waging war against the 20 European countries, Canada and USA. So that's the situation now. So now President Trump doesn't want to finance NATO. They want European members to, increase their donation up to 5% of the GDP. So it reminds me of President Andrew Jackson in 1830, when he granted when the Chief Justice granted an injunction against moving the Seminole Indian of Florida, but the Supreme Court said you can't do that because it's pacta sunt servanda, because treaties have to comply. But what did then the President Andrew Jackson did, that he sent the military and he actually moved the Seminole Indian from Florida. So are we moving back to 100 years? Because what is happening? Because the last week the NATO chief, he said that NATO's effectivity doesn't he doesn't think it of without America's support. So what is your opinion in this regard, Mr. Jack?
Well, first of all, this is an old Trump issue, which he started raising in the Republican Party primary elections of 2016. Why is the American taxpayer paying for the defense of countries which are almost as rich as the United States? And he said America shouldn't do it. And he made that point when he was president in 2017, that America would not continue to pay the costs of European defense. He could not. He kept asking, show me a reason why we need to defend Europe. And in his view, nobody showed him that reason. Well, that created a great insecurity in Europe in 2017, 2018. And the way it was resolved is NATO and the countries agreed, all of us will spend 2% of our income of our GDP, our gross domestic product, on our own defense. It's not a donation. That is what they spend on their own armaments, their own military. And that settled the matter, and now all the NATO countries are in compliance with that. Now President Trump has dug up the issue again, and he's tried to up the ante and said, no, not 2%, why not 5%? Because we're not going to ensure Europe's security. Now, what he's basically doing is announcing in advance that his government will breach the treaty. They're not going to carry out their obligation to defend Europe under the treaty. Because the key, as you pointed out, the key strength of NATO is attack one of us and all of us fight you. If Russia had attacked, as you pointed out, say Poland, which is a NATO member, then America, Canada, and all of Europe would have been at war with Russia over Poland. And that's why he never did it. And that's why he attacked Ukraine, because Ukraine was not in NATO yet. And that is why Putin is so concerned that Ukraine will join NATO. Because then if he touches his neighboring country, he's gone to war with all of Europe. So your question, I suppose, is, so what happens to Europe now?
Well, my question was, do you think that Europe's defense plan can operate without America?
Well, if it must, it can, and it will. Maybe they will have to go up to 5% or higher, but
none of them is meeting, to be honest.
Is doing it now, and it would be a big sacrifice, and it would damage the social welfare systems in Europe. But it obviously, the alternative is just be defenseless, and no one's going to choose that. But with President Trump, you always have to ask yourself, is he really serious? Because he has a way of imposing or trying to get change by saying, I will do the most unacceptable thing you can imagine, and so you'd better negotiate with me. He got this from the business world. He may not do it. He didn't pull out of NATO in 2018. He just, when they went to 2% on their own expenditure, he accepted it and didn't say anymore. Probably some kind of compromise like that will be worked out. Maybe the NATO countries will go up to 3% or something like that. Britain has already voluntarily been putting 2.5% above the NATO requirement into their own military. So something like that will be done. But as I say, you will not know what happens until the last page of that story.
Okay, that's what happened in case of Canada and Mexico, because when he imposed tariff on them,
but he didn't actually impose it.
He didn't actually impose.
He threatened it.
He threatened them, and later on
he backed off.
He backed off,
Yes.
and he became successful in negotiation.
Well,
now
we don't know.
That's his style of negotiation, I guess.
You've got it dead on. That's his style of negotiation. He's trying to handle international political affairs like he handled real estate negotiations in Queens, New York. And well, one could have one's opinions on whether this is the appropriate way to handle diplomatic relations, but it is Trump's way. Trump's view of the world is very personal. If you do what I want, I've got your back. And if you don't do what I want, I'll destroy you. And unfortunately, it seems to be working in enough cases that he's egged on to do more of this.
So my question to you, will America be successful to take the ownership of Greenland? As far as you remember, I don't know whether you remember it or not, in 2017, he offered to buy Greenland from Denmark.
Right.
So why does he want to buy Greenland? Because of the rich minerals? Because I remember the Mette Frederik, the premier of Denmark.
Mette Frederik,
yeah, she said it's a mad idea.
Yes.
And he even cancelled the meeting with the Danish Prime Minister.
Yes.
So why he is so much interested to buy Greenland?
Okay.
And that's back in 2017.
Right.
But now he says he wants to annex Greenland.
Right.
So how does it work?
Well, no expert who has commented on this interesting statement by him that we should annex Greenland. No one has said it could work. No one has any way to think. I mean, the way he is talking, he would just send the army and defeat the Danish army and defeat the Greenland army and Greenland police, whatever, and govern it. Just pure, naked imperialism. Now, whether the American people would support a war in Greenland, which looks depressingly like the war in Ukraine, I think that is a very open question. But again, Trump's statements and Trump's actions, there are kilometers of difference between them. I don't think at the end of the day, and as you point out, he tried to buy it in 2017. He got nowhere. The Prime Minister Frederiksen said two things. One is, we can't sell it, it's not ours, it belongs to Greenlanders. Second thing was, what a mad idea, which made her Trump's enemy.
Most importantly, the Greenland is having autonomy for 50 years. So
Yes.
it's not, they have their own constitution, they have their
Yes.
own police, they have their
Yes.
own government.
Yes.
So Denmark cannot sell them.
No,
Because they don't have that
it's not
authority
theirs.
to sell them.
Well, look,
and
look.
what if China one day says they will annex Taiwan?
Look,
What if,
you are my friend,
Yeah.
okay. So if someone came along and said, I want to buy Shipley's house, here is $1 million. Well, I couldn't take that, and my sale would have no effect in law whatever, because no one in Latin, in law, we say no one gives what he doesn't have. So I don't even think that's on the cards. A more interesting question which you asked that many experts have commented on is, there are good reasons for America to take Greenland. Number one, location. It is the land between Russia and America. It affects America's security. If America takes Greenland, it's equivalent to having the middle squares on the chessboard. They are forward looking at the Russians rather than the Russians. And Trump is very worried about China's activities in Greenland, because China is the best friend of all developing countries, they say, and they have put money into Greenland development. Now, what's at stake? Lithium, many other precious minerals which are necessary for modern technological manufacturing. Trump wants them for America, and he absolutely does not want China to get them, because then the Chinese would be ahead in all trade. So that's it. Those are his real reasons, and people say those are not mad reasons. Those are very sensible reasons. But attacking the country, that's a mad approach. So how do you negotiate
he said he will
about
annex
this?
it, but how he will annex it? The only thing that remains, the only choice that he has, is to make an intervention.
Well, that
would be an illegal intervention according to international law.
In the least. But what will bother him is he has campaigned as the peacemaker. He helped to arrange the Gaza ceasefire. He is trying to settle the Ukraine war.
My other question is,
Hang on, let me finish this.
Okay.
And everyone says Trump's goal is to get the Time Man of the Year and the Nobel Peace Prize in 2025. He wants to settle wars. If he goes into a war in Greenland, he will anger the American people. His popularity will fall, which drives him mad. And then maybe the Republicans are in trouble in 2026. So he won't do it. I don't think he's mad enough to do it. But this is why he's doing it. So what's going to happen, I think, perhaps Greenland might negotiate some kind of treaty which gives equal access of different countries to their precious minerals and investment. And that will be good for the world. That is the best scenario, and I think it is more likely than that Trump will become the Putin of Greenland.
Ladies and gentlemen, we were discussing the Greenland situation and the Europe security. Now it's time to go on a break. After the break, we will come back and continue the discussion. So do come back after the break. Welcome to Talk to SATV. Before the break, we were discussing about the Greenland issue and the NATO issue. Now let's turn to Bangladesh. Well, United States has historically been key development partners and providing foreign aids in sectors such as disaster relief, education, healthcare. So, after being in his second term, Donald Trump froze nearly all foreign aid as part of his America First agenda. So, it has an impact on Bangladesh as well. So, my question to you, whether there is a possibility that this stopping of aid is permanent for Bangladesh?
Well, let's not talk about possibilities, especially with President Trump. Anything is possible. But let's talk about realities. The first point I want to make very clearly, this was not about Bangladesh. The budget freeze applies to all countries and applies to many domestic areas as well. They're trying to get control over the spending and over the huge debt that's been run up in America. Now, they have not abolished foreign aid. The Republicans are especially exorcised about the U.S. aid, the U.S. Agency for International Development, which they regard as being run by a bunch of extremists. So they're trying to destroy that. That's why Elon Musk is literally taking the sign off their building. This temporary freeze is really temporary. It's just for a few months. And then by that time, they hope to have a strategy for public expenditure where they can make policy decisions about what needs to be cut and not. Is it possible that foreign aid will stop completely? Probably not. And Bangladesh, as I say, Bangladesh is not even mentioned in these discussions. So don't worry about that.
As we all see, President Trump is imposing tariff on different countries. So is Bangladesh on threat in case of RMG sector? Because Bangladesh has a booming RMG sector, ready-made garment sector.
Yes.
You remember back in 1984 when Hussein Mohammad Ershad, he went to meet President Ronald Reagan, and then he talked about GSP, generalized system of preferences, and Bangladesh enjoyed that GSP up to 2004. So it has huge impact on our economy. But from 2004, GSP has been withdrawn by the American government. And
note, Bangladesh survived.
And Bangladesh survived.
Even though people at the time in Bangladesh said, no, we're finished.
Exactly.
Bangladesh survived, and they found a way to trade on equal terms with everyone else.
True. So Bangladesh survived that withdrawal of GSP.
Yes.
Now my question to you, that can we be stop being bigger for aid and start being bigger for preferences again? Because the system doesn't work that way. The things that have been stopped in 2004, is it possible to reopen it back in 2025, or is it a very we are hoping against the hope for it? Or are we in threat from the Republican government to be imposed tariff on our garments product? So that's the bigger question or bigger threat that Bangladesh has right now. So according to your opinion, what is the way out? How we would meander through this difficult situation? That's my question to you.
Okay. Number one, the threat of import taxes being imposed on Bangladeshi garments is much more a real threat than that foreign aid would be cancelled. I don't think you're going to find this Republican government being very generous with foreign aid. I think they may cut it for everyone, not eliminate it, but certainly not increase it and maybe reduce it because of their budgetary problems. Second issue, I think it is cloud cuckoo land to think that you can go to this Republican government and say, force march back to 1984, let's start the GSP again.
Let me stop you over there. We are forcing back 1830. We are forcing, President Trump is forcing annexures, the things that have happened in international law. As an international law expert, you know and I know that things that have happened 100 years back, those things are coming back in international arena.
All right. So yeah, what you're really saying, and this is the truth, is that with Donald Trump there, all bets are off. But I have been researching in recent times about something called political psychology. And political psychology theory, to make it simple, says if you understand the psychology of the leaders, then you can predict the policy. Right. You have to understand Donald Trump's psychology. And if you go to someone whose psychology is America is the victim of the world and America needs protection from the other countries, and suggest to him to give trade preferences to other countries in the American market, I can't imagine him giving you the time of day. Now, the issue is, to what extent are the Republicans going to implement this vision that they have now, that they can raise all their revenue from foreigners selling to America and cut domestic taxation? And so then President Trump will go to his voters and say, I made the foreigners pay your taxes so you could pay less taxes. That is very attractive to Donald Trump. If that happens, it will happen to everybody, and we've seen this in the most recent announcement. They are imposing tariffs on everybody. And Bangladesh t-shirts will cost more in America if that happens. Yet I think it is an opportunity for Bangladesh. Do you really want your country in the 21st century to compete in a globalized technological world just making t-shirts? I think Bangladesh should get creative. I think you may have a problem, but I think you need to get creative and start developing your export industries to diversify them, to export more of the things that the other countries want, and to make your exports more technological to compete in the world market. So you may get hit on the chin, but take it as a lesson and an opportunity to modernize your economy, because the t-shirt frenzy, which was started by the GSP, is not a policy for economic development. It's a policy for like a little quick cash. And you want your country to develop, to become industrial, to become technological. So that's my solution to it. And they can't stop you, because if you produce modern technological products, if America won't buy them, others will.
Mr. Efron, according to you, that we are in threat of tariff imposed as well.
Yes.
So how is the trajectory now, considering the Indo-Pacific region, where Bangladesh stands in Republican government's policy? What would be the correct approach of the interim government to negotiate with the United States of America?
Yeah.
Because considering the political destabilization that we are going through, so according to you, what is the panacea that how we would meander through this difficult time? What would be the correct approach of this government?
All right. I'm not in the business of panaceas. I also, President Trump will understand that this is a temporary government, that they are there till the next election, and I doubt that they would negotiate seriously, except on urgent matters. So it's not up to this government to basically deal with this problem, and it's a long-term problem. It's not a short-term one. But here's your strategy. Here's the strategy for the next government, whoever they are elected in Bangladesh. President Trump sees the whole world personally. There are two types of people in Trump's world. There are my guys and there are the enemy. So, and I can give you a perfect example of doing it right. Most of the ministers in the Labour governments now in power in Britain said horrible things about Trump when he was last president. They called him a Nazi, they called him mad, they called him a danger.
Even the leader of the opposition raised in House and Commons that what they have said about the President Trump, would they,
well, but
exactly.
She was proven wrong, because David Lammy went, that's the foreign minister, went to America and talked with Elon Musk and talked with President Trump, I think in very subservient terms, and Keir Starmer did the same thing, and now they say they have a good relationship. That tells us one thing that's quite important. He sees enemies or he sees friends, but he is willing to forgive friends, new friends, for their past actions as enemies. Bangladesh has not been an enemy. There's only one issue that I can see where there might be a cause for concern. A lot of Army League leaders said to me under the past government that the Americans were trying to sabotage the Army League's election campaign in 2024. And that was the Democratic government. And I also want to point out on the other end, in America, the Republicans in opposition were criticizing the Democratic government for meddling in the Bangladesh election.
We were into an interesting discussion. It's time to go for a short break. Do come back because we will discuss about the US-Bangladesh relationship after the break. Welcome to Talk to SATV. Before the break, we were discussing about US-Bangladesh trades and US-Bangladesh relationship. Now we will turn into another option, that is China. For example, Jack, if Republican government imposes tariffs on our garment product, God forbid, if it happens, if the door to the aid is closed forever, then is it viable for the Bangladeshi government to look towards China as an alternative option, or they should be cautious about the death trap diplomacy? Because people are skeptical about it, because even all the countries in South Asia, they do look China in a inscrutable eye, to be honest. But my question to you, is it a viable policy that if we have been blocked by United States of America to look for an alternative and look towards China?
I'm tempted to answer, go ask a Sri Lankan this question. I mean, Sri Lankan talk about debt.
This is why I say we are skeptical about it.
I would be very skeptical. Look, I lived in Taiwan for about 6 years, and I know the Chinese pretty well. The Chinese never go into business except to win everything. And they will be your best friends. They will give you everything you want, but you have to give them everything they want. That could mean Chinese bases in Bangladesh. That could mean your industries would be flattened by Chinese competition. And you see, you can say, all right, I won't sell to America because I don't like their tariffs and nobody will buy my goods at these prices. I will sell to China. China is Bangladesh's biggest competitor in garments because their prices are so much lower. The Chinese took over your silk trade by pricing their silk far lower, and there's no market there for you.
But Jack, China is one of the most important strategic development partner of Bangladesh. They have investment in Bangladesh.
Yes.
And Bangladesh is a lucrative investment destination because of the geopolitical location. So how can we attract American investment, European investment, or any other foreign investment to our country? What should be our strategy? How we would, attract the investors all over the world to invest in Bangladesh?
Okay, that's not a Bangladesh-China issue. That's an issue for the whole world.
Exactly.
And it's the right question to ask because the Bangladesh economy has not developed that much. It has been concentrated on these quick profit products like garments, and to some degree things like jute and things like that. And you need the investment. And Bangladesh has frustrated foreign investment for years, although they claimed, if you read the Foreign Investment Promotion and Protection Act 1980, as Donald Trump would say, it's a beautiful law. It has equality between foreign investors and local people. It has free markets, open markets. But the Bangladesh civil service has never followed it, and they have frustrated it. You want a roadmap to foreign investment to make Bangladesh the equivalent of Singapore 20 years ago? Number one, throw out the Bangladesh Bank. They should not be meddling with currency rates. You should set up an independent professional commission to regulate the banks, and you should make, first of all, the Bangladesh taka convertible into foreign currency. You take the view, Bangladesh has taken the view, anybody you want to send money here, you're welcome, but you can't take it out. And nobody will invest on those terms. Free movement, free exchange of currency, that would make a big difference.
But the money laundering that we have suffered, that plays a major role or impact on it as well.
That hasn't been foreigners, that was mostly Army League hacks who manipulated the banks and robbed them, in effect.
Rohingya refugee crisis remains a major issue for Bangladesh. So what do you think that Bangladesh's approach should be? How Bangladesh attract international support to solve this crisis?
It is a very sad crisis that Bangladesh got landed in because nobody else would take those people. And Bangladesh did the right thing, in effect, by taking them. But it has really overwhelmed the Cox's Bazar district, etc. And the problem is not in Bangladesh. The problem is in Myanmar, which has become a failed state. And you can't there's nowhere to send the Rohingya. I would say the next government of Bangladesh ought to go around the world and say, look, this is as bad as Syria 2015. We will grant a certain number of Rohingya citizenship, and you please do the same. Everybody take a few thousand Rohingya and let them immigrate to your countries, because the solution is not for all of them to sit in camps in Bangladesh forever. And I think that's the only solution.
And you do know the problems that we are having because of those refugees, because they're engaging in terrorism, they're engaging in anti-legal activities, crime rates have gone up into those districts.
Yes.
So where to raise this concern?
I would raise it if I were Prime Minister of Bangladesh. I would raise it with every world leader that I spoke to, and I would try to create some international momentum for everybody. Take a few thousand Rohingya and resettle them in your country. Give them a future. Give them the education.
What about the repatriation, the dignified repatriation of Rohingya?
Well, you can't have dignified.
Does China can chip in? Does Bangladesh should go to other countries? And who can be, who can come and help us in this direction?
Every country. I mean, look what happened with the Syrian refugees. The Germans took a few thousand. The French took a few thousand. Americans took a few thousand, and they settled that problem. Now Syria has restored democracy, and those people are coming back to Syria. You cannot have dignified repatriation to a country that is at war, in civil war, where a government is broken down, where you have a military dictatorship opposed by most of the different states in Myanmar. You can't send people back into that. It's a death trap. So until Myanmar resolves its problems, you need to give these people refugee status in various countries and let them develop, let them move on.
Well, how significant is the role of Bangladeshi diasporas living in different countries? So you have been to different countries in Europe, you have been to America, I've been to different countries, and I've seen how diasporas play a significant role in the development of their country. So why it is not happening in terms of Bangladesh? Where did we get wrong?
No, well, you didn't really develop your economy, and you didn't create an export base which provided revenue from business in the country, you told your people, go get a job in construction in the Middle East or Malaysia and bring us money that way. That's what you've been living on. And so as a result, anybody with a brain and some access to another country is going to go and try to make their fortune there. And they've done it in many countries. Get a growing economic base in Bangladesh, and those people will come back on their own.
Mr. Jack Edward Ephron, Dr. Jack Edward Ephron, it's an absolute honor to have you on my show.
You.
And it's we had a wonderful discussion. Thank you very much.
I agree, and I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it as well.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank
it's
you.
a pleasure, sir.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the conclusion of the program. And what we have found out throughout this interesting discussion, that we can deal with President Donald Trump if we can't consider ourselves as equal, or if we can consider less equal. Number two, that every statement that Mr. President Donald Trump makes, it doesn't turn out to be a gospel. So we can deal with them, we can deal with United States of America, and we have a lot of hopes for it as well. The third thing that came out of the discussion, that if Bangladesh could open up for foreign investment and make really foreign investors and the domestic investors in equal terms, then definitely we have a possibility of lot more foreign investment, and then country could go forward. Thank you very much for watching our show tonight. We will be back on the next show with another guest, and until then, goodbye. Allah Hafiz.